Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF. Gabriel Talks Football. Apologize for the delay. I had some technical issues, but we are ready to go on a very special day here at the Barroom Network. Greg has a very special guest, and I will ask Greg to come in and introduce his guest.
Well, we've got my longtime friend, 39 years now, Jerry Angelo. We started working together in 1984 with the Giants, and then got together again in 2001 here with the Bears and spent a lot of good years here. And we always talk on the phone during the year. So, Jerry, come on in and say hello.
Good, Greg. Good being with you today. I'm glad you got a show going on. Although, nice meeting you, buddy.
Nice meeting you, Jerry.
So, Jerry, first thing I want to hit, because it was a special day for us in a way. I know when you were in Tampa, you had, I think, 2 Hall of Famers. I had Derek Brooks and John Lynch. Was there anybody else?
Well, Warren Sapp and Rondé Barber, Greg.
Oh, that's right. Warren Sapp and Rondé Barber. You had 4. Damn, you were the king down there. And know who I thought was in, and then know who I thought was in and wasn't, was Warwick Dunn.
Oh, yeah, Warwick Dunn was really a good player for us. Not quite the caliber of those.
Did we lose him?
We lost Jerry momentarily. Let's see if we can get him back here. Jerry, you may have walked into a bad cell area because he was walking and talking. I think he's back. There he is.
There you are.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I just said about Warwick, had he stayed with the Bucs his whole career, he had probably got in the Ring of Honor, but when he went to Atlanta in free agency, which is very understandable, I think that probably squashed his hopes of that happening with ownership.
Right. But now then, over the weekend, we had Devin Hester, who was the first pick from our group of draft choices, and I think we'll probably get a few more in Peanut Tillman and Lance Briggs. And then Peppers, who you had a big part in signing. I just watched a little tape, but that was you in the pro department. But I think that is, a good pat on the back for us, I guess, if you want to say that, because it showed we did good work. We had 12 Pro Bowlers that we drafted, make it to the Pro Bowl. And now we've got 1 in the Hall of Fame and hopefully some more.
Oh, it's great, Greg. Anytime you see a player aspire, to the elite level, obviously the Hall of Fame is the holy grail in the football world. It's very, very satisfying. And there couldn't have been anybody any more worthy than Devin, obviously being a special team player. That created some gray for a lot of people, but what it really shows is the value of special teams, and hopefully this opens up the door for more players, particularly in the past, that were great teamers, particularly kickers. I'm just surprised there's just so few kickers, in the Hall of Fame as well.
Well, there's a lot of people in Buffalo who think Steve Tasker should be in because he went to about 8 or 9 Pro Bowls as a special teamer. He wasn't a return guy. He was just a cover guy, but really good at it.
Oh, Greg, you hit it. He was great. I forgot about him, but you're 100% right. They need to be recognized. We just saw in that game, on Sunday, special teams again was a big part of that game.
Absolutely.
And I got to say, both cover teams were exceptional in the game. So again, hopefully this opens up the mind to the voters, and we start seeing more special teams players in there.
Okay, next thing I wanted to hit, because I know we don't have a lot of time with you, is because this is big with you. And when we worked together in New York, they didn't put us anywhere close to the emphasis as we did here in Chicago. And that's character and really football character. And, you know, in New York, Tom Boyster was our boss. He ran the scouting department, and they relied a lot on this test called the CPI. And they had this psychologist, Joel Goldberg, who had years and years of data. And actually, I mean, we got really good results out of it, but still, we didn't go in depth as much as when Jerry and I got to Chicago. And that was really from the work Jerry had done in Tampa Bay and really perfecting that. And could you talk about that a little bit, Jerry, as far as, you know, why it's so important for the football character, and we always separate football character and personal character, why it's so important for the football character to be correct in order for a player to succeed?
Well, I always felt this, Greg. If you have a franchise quarterback, he could mask a lot of things on a football team. Unfortunately, I was never with, a franchise quarterback. Been with a lot of good ones, but not special ones. So you really had to build a strong team, both sides of the ball, and again on special teams. And the other thing that I learned that you had to have not a good locker room, you had to have a great locker room. I've never been on a good football team, a great football team, if they didn't have a great locker room. So obviously, the character of your locker room, people use the word culture. Culture is just another word for the character of your team. And we started to put more stock in the types of people we brought in, not just the talent. I always said this: talent, a team's need, the value of the position will get you drafted, but the character is the glue that's going to create the career. And that's a fact. And I always looked at character, Greg, not good or bad, but looked at it as strong or weak. Work ethic, competitive nature. That tells you if a player loves football. Okay. And then obviously his dependability, his trust level on and off the field, his football IQ. Is he working hard, taking notes, watching extra tape, etc.? And then is he a team guy? Everybody's selfish to a degree, but not at the expense of the team. So when you bring those criteria, those 4 criteria that I just touched on, love of the game, his football IQ, his dependability, he's a team guy, that's going to create a great locker room. And, it works, Greg. It works. We won a lot of football games in Chicago. Nothing really came easy. All our games usually went into the fourth quarter, determined by who's going to, make the last mistake, so to speak. But I feel very strongly about it, and I think it's still true today. There are a lot of great players out there. We know that, but there's a lot of great character on the field as well.
Now, taking that a step further, and I don't want to get into the local quarterback debate only because I don't think it's fair to you and it's fair to Ryan Poles, the Bears GM, because to have you say something that might not coincide with the way he's thinking, how people are going to blow that up. So
right.
We'll stay away from that part. But how important is it as the face of the franchise for the quarterback to have that character, that strong football character, just like the other guys, if not have the strongest on the team?
Well, I think it's critically important, Greg. I think the position speaks for itself. Obviously, it's the most valued position on a football team. And a character applies to everybody. We're just not talking about the quarterback. We're talking about everybody, but it really applies to him because he is, in most cases, the face of the franchise, the leader of the team, so to speak. So I always looked at the position as a character position, and very, very important, uh, because I've been on teams where he didn't have those criteria that I mentioned a little earlier, and it didn't work, irrelevant of his talent. It might have at other positions for a while, but it won't work at the quarterback position, particularly at the NFL level.
So what are you doing with yourself now?
Well, not too much. I still enjoy watching football. I like Saturdays quite a bit. And, I got two grand boys, Greg, 6 and 4, spend a lot of time with them. Very, very fortunate. Us being in the business that we were in, we spent a lot of time, not at home. And, God gave me a mulligan. I got these two grand boys. I said, God, I'm not going to blow it again. I said, I'm going to be around for them. So it's been a lot of fun and, staying busy. Still like to, do a little exercising like you and I did when we were in Chicago. And, but there's plenty to do.
It's funny because, having worked with Jerry as long as I have, the epitome of the grinder is Jerry Angelo. And if you want to work with him, you better be trying to work harder and grind harder because Jerry's the proverbial first guy in, last guy out. And so what I used to try to do is, I figured out what time he was going to get there. I had to get there about a minute before. And, and then as soon as you went out the door, Doc, I was like 2 minutes behind you, too.
Yeah, no. Hey, Greg, well, when you're not real smart, you got to work harder. I knew my limitations. I knew what I had to do to, stay in the chase, so to speak. But we all worked hard. Listen, we had a great team in Chicago, team of people. I'm talking about our front office, our coaches, and we melded well together. And obviously, the work ethic was a big part of what success we had.
Well, I think when you talk about some of the guys we had in our scouting department, the work that they've done since we've been gone. Teddy Monaco is the assistant director in Los Angeles for the Rams, and people look at him as one of the best evaluators in the game now. Chris Ballard's done a great job as the GM of the Colts. Marty Barrett's with the Rams with Teddy and is their national scout. Mark Sadowski is an executive with the Steelers. I mean, we had some really, really good people.
Greg, we had a great team, of scouts, and it takes a great team to do, the work that needs to be done. No, we are very, very fortunate. And, we worked well together. We enjoyed each other as well, which really made it fun because, as you said earlier, the long hours, the hard work everybody puts in, everybody is doing that. But we enjoyed the work. We enjoyed the camaraderie of working together. And again, just like we talk about the chemistry in that locker room, the chemistry in the building, in the front office with the coaches is equally important.
Yeah, it's got to be. And one thing I want, the viewers should know is that, we're going through like this time of the month in February, right? Shortly before you go down to Indy for the combine, we get together, we put together the preliminary board. We're going through players position by position, and we're talking, and there's disagreement in the room. Jerry might see a guy one way, I might see a guy another way. Ballard might see the guy a third way. And then, you talk it out and you try to come up with the right grade on the person because it's not about who's right. It's about being right and having the right guy or the right grade on the player for your team going into April for the draft. Am I right in saying that, Jerry?
Absolutely, Greg, and you hit it. It's not about who's right; it's about being right. And Greg, you got to park your ego. You know, that's the bottom line. Obviously, I had a lot of say in personnel, but I listened hard. I listened hard to everybody's opinion because I know the work they put in, and you know, I had an opinion too based on the work that I put in, but you know, it was collaborative, and you know, we wanted to make the best decision. Even though I might have been able to get my way, I didn't always get my way because I deferred to people like yourself and the scouts that you were just talking or alluding to, because they put that kind of work in, the methodology they use. You know, you've got to be a good listener. And then you've got to be able to weigh, you know, the criteria, you know, based on evaluation, because it's projection, you know, and that's what you're doing. Nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be right all the time. But what you want to do is just use good common sense throughout the process.
You know, there's one guy, because that reminded me of a story where there was some disagreement and you gave in to the masses, so to speak, and that was Matt Forte. You know,
Yes,
you know,
right.
Ballard was the area scout, myself, and then Tim Spencer were a little bit higher on him than you, but you were like, okay, if you guys really want him, that's who we'll take. And you know, well, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. He turned out to be a hell of a football player for us.
No,
had a great career.
He had a great career, and I was wrong on Matt. Not that I didn't like Matt. You can't be in scouting and not like Matt Forte. It's just the degree that others liked him.
Right.
And, you know, I go back and look at that, and you feel good because, you know why? It's about, you know, team. It's a team effort. You know, it's not one person. You know, the higher up the ladder you get, you know, sometimes you get too much credit, and that just goes with the territory. But all great organizations know what they have to do and know they have to do it together. And again, you got to be a good listener. And, you know, Greg, sometimes you are wrong. The whole key to it, and what you try not to do, though, is miss big. You can't miss big. That's what you want to focus on. And, you know, for the most part, you know, we did some good things.
You know what I thought was the most fun, one of the most fun things we did every spring is you, myself, Lovey, the coordinator, the position coach would lock ourselves in a room and we go over those profile tapes, position at a time. And to me, it was so easy then when you're watching back to back to back to rank the players in that group. This guy's the best. This guy's the second best. This guy's the third best. And so then when you get into your final meetings a few weeks later and put the final board together, it's a lot easier to do because we did that one exercise. And and trust me, people, we did this like every day.
Yeah. And you know, Greg, I think we learned this. I know I did when we were with the Giants. Parcells made a statement in a room, and I was in the room hearing it like others were hearing it. And he said, the best thing about the people we draft, we all like him when he comes into the building. And, you know, I didn't really think about it then, but as I, you know, grew in the business, it really resonated. It's so important when you draft a player that everybody sees him in a positive light when he comes into the building. All players are flawed. There's no such thing as the perfect player. But when you draft him, everybody's got to have a good feel good when he comes in. I've been in situations where that didn't happen, be it a coach in particular, and it hurt the player's development. Maybe what he could have been, he wasn't, because that coach really didn't have a strong feel good. So those things that you just talked about, Greg, that we did, we knew this, that our coaches had to feel as good about them as we did. And if they didn't, Greg, we took them off the board.
Right.
It was
Absolutely.
simple as that. Again, it's not about who's right. It's about being right and having that feel good on every player you bring in the building, knowing that you're not going to hit on all of them, but you want to hit on most of them.
Well, Jerry, we've kept you a half hour.
Yeah, Greg, can I jump in here?
Sure.
Jerry, if you've got a couple more minutes, I'd like to ask a couple more questions. Is that okay, Jerry?
Yeah, go ahead, Aldo.
Thank you very much. You did an interview with Don Pompei over at The Athletic, and you said becoming a general manager doesn't make you smarter. It just puts you in charge. I was going to hire a head coach that was compatible with my philosophy. He was going to coach the team, but I needed to know that it was going to be coached in our likeness. I read that and I say to myself, what a great organizational philosophy approach to that. And do you think that most NFL teams are doing that nowadays? Or do you, when you take a look throughout the league, do you say, well, that might have been part of their problem, is that they didn't have a unifying philosophy from the top all the way down to the equipment manager?
You're pretty sharp, Aldo. That's great insight. And I that applied 100% true when I was in the business. And I think a lot of why you see the attrition that you see, 75%, approximately 75% of all the head coaches will be terminated in 3 years or less. And one of the major reasons is just what you alluded to, Aldo, that you most teams hire the resume, coach the quarterback, develop the quarterback. I get it. But if he can't lead, he's not going to make it. If he's not compatible with the ownership's philosophy, ownership / general manager, it's not going to work. That's an historic fact. You got a franchise quarterback, that's different. But how many are those, or how many franchise quarterbacks are there in any generation? Maybe 5 or 6. So what are the other 20 some teams going to do? If you're not on the same page, if you're not philosophically on the same page, to me, it's not going to work.
All right, we had dozens of good questions from the chat, but I'm going to just choose one. This one from Maul Douglas. He says, I would love to hear Jerry's opinion on whether or not to believe any of the smoke during draft season and how much teams use the media to push draft narratives as part of their strategy. I think, Greg always says, this is the lying season. You don't believe anything on social media and so forth. So we would love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I always enjoyed the draft time, particularly all the things that were being said. Although if I had to use something to equate it to, it's like a big game of liar's poker. Okay. And that's part of the fun of it. Who do you believe? Who said? There would be people in our business, I'm talking about personnel, they would tell the honest truth about most things, in knowing that nobody would believe them. So it's part of the fantasy. It's part of the lore, and it makes the sport, what it is, particularly around draft time.
Peter A says, thank you, Jerry, for a decade of really good football. I echo that. The dozens and dozens of fans who are in the chat room now. We've got over 285 people watching live on YouTube. We all echo that. Thank you, Jerry, for building the winning teams here in Chicago, making it so exciting to be a Bears fan. We are hoping and praying for days like that to come back again. Thank you very much for being here, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
for the
Big Doug.
work, Aldo. Okay, Greg. Good being with you. My best.
buddy.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
That is Jerry Angelo. That was fun, man. I'm telling you. How'd you pull that one off, Greg?
I got to tell you, because when you said that, and some guys tell you the truth, and nobody believed them. And the king of that was the late John Butler, who was general manager in Buffalo for a long time, and then out in San Diego with the Chargers. And you get to the draft, and what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to take Thurman Thomas. Well, you can take that guy out. He's not going to take Thurman. And what's he doing? He drafts Thurman Thomas. And he did that every year, and nobody would believe him. And it always turned out to be the guy he said he was going to do. And you think after a year or two, people would catch on? Nobody did.
Nobody did. That is wild. Of all these organizational philosophy things, because in listening to Jerry and in reading some of his work that he did with the Athletic with Don Pompei, he sounds like an organizational, I don't mean to be hyperbolic about this, but he sounds like an organizational genius. He has this philosophy about building a team, about building a culture, and so forth. Is there one piece of wisdom that he shared with you that you hold deep down in your heart and apply to that day to day nowadays when you're looking at tape, or just something that is very, very memorable that he shared with you?
God, there's a lot, because they said at the beginning, we've known each other like 39 years now. And, in the time we were together in New York, I think 4 years, and then he went to Tampa. But that wasn't like a bunch of years we didn't communicate. We always talked to each other. We were good friends, see each other on the road. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story, and I might have told it before. So this is during the spring of 2001, and we're at pro days. So we ended up being at Michigan together. And so Thomas, the running back, the Bears took. We weren't there for that 01 draft. Then who the hell was the first round pick? I can't think of his name. The wide receiver for Michigan.
David Terrell.
David Terrell. Okay. So we're at the pro day, and Terrell is being a total a-hole. Diva. We wanted the guys to work out in the indoor facility, which was, connected to the locker room and behind the weight room at Michigan, and that had a field turf surface. David wanted to run on a track, which was like the next building over, but he wanted to run on that fast tartan surface. And we're like, hey, you want to run on that? You go ahead and run on it, but we're going to add time, because that's a lot faster surface than the field turf. We equate everything to grass, and field turf and grass about the same. But anyway, he's just being a total knucklehead. And you can say, oh God, this isn't going to work for whoever gets him. So I remember, right in the middle of this thing, I walk over to Jerry, I put my arm around him, I go, big dog. Now I'm with the Giants, he's with Tampa. Neither one of us knew we were going to be here. Aren't you glad we're not going to put up with this bullshit? And what happens is a couple months later, he gets hired as the GM. He brings me in as the scouting director. I walk in his office. He gets hired like on a Monday. 2 days later on a Wednesday, I'm there, my first day in the office. I walk in the office. He just looks at me and goes, we spoke too soon.
Oh my gosh. And it was such a shame with, David Terrell. It appeared to many of us fans that he just didn't get it,
That's pretty good. I'll put it this way. Knowing the criteria that we used, okay, once we got here, and the philosophy that we had, he would not have been our pick in April of 2001.
Yeah.
But we inherited him, and that's not the year before they took Brian Urlacher, and that was, epitome of a great pick. But, Terrell had loads of talent. But there's other issues. He wasn't a bad person. He just, didn't have the proper football character. And I think, go back to what you were saying, is what did I get out of it? When I talk here or I tweet stuff out or whatever, it's always with that same philosophy in mind. That's how I look for certain things in players, but I try to find out the background. And is the background conducive to him being a great player? And I purposely asked Jerry about the quarterback situation because from information I have, Caleb's not a bad person, but there's other issues. He's selfish. Right. And is he a leader? Is he a real team guy? You got to question those, and you got to do your research. Okay. Right. I've never made a school call, but information I got of people who have made school calls, that's what they say. So that's why I'm like, I get the talent. I know the talent, but is he the right person? And so that has me saying, not at the first pick in the draft, he's not. Because you better be 100% right on that one. You don't get a second. You blow that one, you don't get a second chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? You're betting your career out, especially if you're going to get rid of another quarterback that still has an opportunity to be decent. Yep. So it's, that's why I say what I say. And if people want to argue with me on X, they can argue all they want. But I got, 40 years of experience now behind me that tell me I'm right. And, I don't know what the Bears are going to do. I know what I do. And I know if Jerry and I were there, I know what he'd do. But it's going to be up to Ryan. It's going to be up to Flus. And they're going to make the right decision. Now, they're going to have a lot more information than I have. And they're going to sit down and talk to the guy. They'll talk to him at the combine, but that's 20 minutes. That 20 minutes isn't enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? You're going to spend time with him, either bringing him in here on a 30 visit or going out to the school doing a private workout. And when you do a private workout, you end up, there's a lot of interview and classroom time, and you're going to spend 6-7 hours with the guy. Maybe go out to dinner the night before or that same day. Or whatever, you're going to spend a lot of time with the guy, and you're going to come out of that feeling really good, or saying, "Hey, I just don't know," And if you got that, I don't know, you can't take them. Yeah. Okay, not at that pick. If it's lower down, different story. But at that pick, trade it. If you don't feel good, trade it. And I, I'll go on my deathbed with that thought. I mean, it's just, I've been burned before. I know what it's like to take a first round pick and have him not work out because he doesn't have strong, excuse me, strong football character. And that was Michael Haynes. Great kid. No football character. Played
great at Penn State. Looked like he was going to be an excellent prospect.
That's on us, but we held our scouts accountable, and that scout was held accountable.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you're underlining, that you said he's a great kid. It was just the football character, which is separate than just being a guy,
Right.
Exactly.
You have to separate football character and football character. Lawrence Taylor did not have good personal character.
It's the other way around.
Okay? He's proven that over and over and over again. Okay. But his football character, off the freaking charts.
Great example.
Okay, that game meant so much to him. He had to have the game, and he knew he had to have the game.
Yeah, indeed.
And it just, he was a leader in that fashion. He wasn't, his off-season work ethic probably wasn't the greatest because he wasn't a weightlifter. He was natural. Yeah. He was just naturally strong. I remember one time there was a weight room at the end of the practice field at training camp. And as soon as practice got over, a bunch of players would go in there, just lifts for 15, 20 minutes on their own, just to get a little exercise before we go to lunch. And at that time, we used to have 2-a-days all the time. So like training camps are country clubs now compared to back then when I was working for ourselves. I mean, we had 2-a-days every freaking day for 6 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, go in there, and Sims was lifting pretty hard. And Taylor and Sims were close. And for a quarterback, Sims probably lifted not 1,000 times better than most quarterbacks in the game. Sims was a really well-built, strong guy and loved working in the weight room. So LT looks at him and he just goes, "You really get something out of that?" And Phil just started laughing, and he just goes, "Buddy, you ought to try it. You might add 5 years to your career." But it was just funny that I was lucky to be there when that little exchange was going on. But there's a lot of truth to it. Lawrence Taylor had a great career. He's in the Hall of Fame. And still, he changed that edge position to what it is.
Yes, he did.
And he, even though he was a outside linebacker in a 3-4, he was a pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
But as good a career as he had, he might have played 3 years longer, 4 years longer, had he been, a strong off-season worker as far as the weight room and stuff. Now, granted, when he started in his career, weight rooms were just coming into existence. Not every team even had a weight room. They didn't have an off-season program like they have now. You had to do it on your own.
Yeah.
And so, that was part of it because, you can do incentives contractually with that. But, LT in the off-season, he'd find Michael Jordan and play golf, and play for $1,000 a hole or something because he's always betting with Jordan about something.
Yeah. So Laz asks, nowadays, do you pass on a Lawrence Taylor at number 1, knowing if you were to have that intel that he is not a great citizen? Do you pass on?
Because his football character was up here.
Mm-hmm.
And strong football character guy with strong football character can overcome the poor citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get poor citizenship and poor football character, you got a bust.
Yeah.
You get a good citizen and poor football character, you got a bust. Yeah. But the game was important to LT. I mean, LT dominated from. I wasn't. He was when I first went to the Giants. He was starting his 3rd year, so I saw from afar. But then I, heard the stories when I got there, and I mean, he just dominated from day one in camp. And there was a one story. I guess it's like the 2nd day of training camp, and they were doing a linebackers pass rushing against running back drill live.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the running back's name. He was from Miami of Ohio. And he lines up to pass block LT, and LT's a rookie. And so he breaks down to block LT, and LT just jumps over. Wow. And makes this guy look like a total fool. And the guy's pissed. He looks at him and he goes, "Don't ever do that to me again, rookie." And LT just looked at him and said, "Fuck you, block me."
I love it. That's football character right there. You make the other players around you better. Absolutely. I want to get to a couple of these questions. Somebody asked, and I forgot to save it, but somebody asked, ask Jerry Angelo what Greg did that made him an asshole, or with smiley faces and stuff. So they were trying to get Jerry Angelo to share a story about you back then that perhaps so I'm asking you, do you remember any time that, with you and Jerry perhaps having a disagreement, an argument, or something like that? The question was asked in good
it's
name.
funny, we'd argue a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I told this once before, always in his office by ourselves.
Right.
Okay. I was never going to now. If we were talking about a player and I saw him differently, like Matt Forte, he was right. He liked Matt. He didn't like him as much as me. He didn't like him as much as Ballard. Didn't like him as much as Tim Spencer. He had a couple other backs he liked better, which is fine. That's scouting. You're going to have different opinions. But if there's something that, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, say, and talking about it, and when we're in the meeting, I'm not going to say a word, okay? Because he's the general manager. And so, he is the boss of that room.
Mm-hmm.
And so right after that meeting gets over, now, my office was right next to that meeting room. His office was directly across the hall. So then I go into his office and then we'd argue or discuss.
Right, sure.
And we'd have a ton of these. And we'd always talk through it. But, part of it is, I got a pretty strong personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bullheaded as hell. And he is too. But it never got in the way of our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could swear and cuss at each other and everything else, but you still loved each other at the end. You always worked it out because in the end, if you disagree on a player or whatever, at the end, he's our player. So we love him if you take him.
All right. I want to talk Super Bowl, but I also want to get some Bears things out of the way. Adam Schefter is reporting that the Bears have talked about potentially drafting Caleb Williams and keeping Justin Fields. He said this is not what they're going to do, but they have talked about it. Your thoughts?
I was talking to a guy and brought that up, and how did he phrase it? It was kind of like, you better have about 4 Yodas in that quarterback room to try to get that thing to work. I couldn't see it working.
Yeah.
At all. What's funny is that between some of the local beat writers, Schefter and Rappaport, they're all saying something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that comes to my mind, and like Rappaport and Schefter are almost on opposite ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So, the first thing I thought of was, Poles is having a great time with this. He's, because these guys get their information from basically somebody in the building, okay?
Right.
So my thinking is he's saying one thing to one, a little bit different to the other. And part of it is when he makes up his mind. Mm-hmm. And I think excuse me, they got to go through a lot more. Today is February, what's today? The 12th or the 13th? Today's the 13th. They're not going to make, the decision hadn't been made today. Okay. The decision's not going to be made after they interview Caleb at the combine. Okay. Could it be made before free agency? Only if he traded the pick like last year. But I don't see that, because if he only trades down a couple spots, you're not going to get a player. It's strictly going to be draft picks or something. Right. You have to make a big move like he did last year where you can get a player thrown in. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a while before they make a decision. It's not just going to be him. It's going to be like Jerry and I were talking about. It's got to be a collective decision. Everybody's got to be on board. And if everybody's not on board, it won't work. But I think part of this stuff that is getting put out is to, in case they do make a trade, mm-hmm. or even it's to help push up the price. Mm-hmm. It's like the thing. Rappaport goes, well, it's got to be a be all end all deal, the greatest deal of all time. That's just letting everybody know, don't come at me cheap.
Right.
If you want them, you got to pay. That's who knows what the hell the deal will be. You'll know that, but to move, let's say you move to Washington, you're not going to get a deal that even compares to last year's deal. It's only a one slot move.
Exactly. Not going to happen.
But you got to overpay.
Mm-hmm.
You get the first pick. You got to overpay. You got to pay a premium. It's how much is that? How much is Washington willing to overpay? And what's interesting about Washington, if they even make an attempt to move up, is that you look at the background of the ownership, and he owns the 76ers, which trade future number ones all the time. Basketball, that's what basketball teams do. And so does that philosophy carry over? And he brought a basketball guy in as president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So does that philosophy carry over in discussions to make a trade?
Yeah.
And giving up, they're sold on this player. And they got one of his coaches from USC. So, are they so sold that they're going to give up a lot of the future to get that player because they're that sold? I mean, to me, it's an interesting scenario. Who the hell knows if there's any truth to it, but it's interesting.
J2K has an interesting question here. Greg, when you had Cutler, Angelo made a statement that the quarterback makes the wide receiver. Can you expand on that, and do you agree?
Well, yeah, a great quarterback with the arm talent that a guy like Jay had can make the wide receiver because he can make the throws. Okay, so if you got a quarterback that can't hit water from a boat, obviously, I don't know if I agree with that 100% because a great wide receiver has a way of getting himself open.
Right. It could work the other way around.
It's like when we have, I start talking a lot, it has an effect. We have Daniel Jeremiah on and Dane Brugler. By the way, if we didn't say it, they're going to be on. Dane, maybe next week. I sent him a text. Haven't heard back yet, but if not, for sure, they're both coming on after the combine. But we're going to debate players. And one of the debates I want to have is with both is Malik Neighbors versus Marvin Harrison. Everybody's got Harrison up here.
That's right.
And I love Marvin Harrison. I love Malik Neighbors more. And the reason being is what Neighbors does after the catch. And he's the type of guy that can take a little 3-yard pass, 4-yard pass, and turn it into a 20, 25-yard gain because of his running skills after the catch. I don't see Harrison having that. He runs great routes, catches the ball great, makes a difficult catch, will catch in traffic. But I think his after the catch skills are average. He doesn't make people miss. Neighbors got return skills in his background. He's got more elusiveness. I think his run instincts are better. So for that reason, and for some of the coaches that I've worked with, that has taught me that is a very, very important characteristic when you're evaluating a wide receiver.
Zach says, why don't people like Brian Thomas Jr.? I like that kid
Love
too.
him.
When you
He's
got him,
almost like, you know what? I got him fourth.
okay. Fourth is not bad. Fourth is
I think he's
probably
a first round pick.
definitely will be available at number 9 if the Bears hold on to that position and the 3 other wide receivers are gone, which is a possibility. I keep hearing more and more that three receivers can go in the top 10 or so. So
Yeah, but it's only happened one time.
that's
I
true.
think. You know, when you go, and I talk about this a lot, go through other drafts, go back 10 years and look at every draft. And when does the third wide receiver usually come off the board? Well, hell, there's been drafts when the first wide receiver didn't go off the board until the 20th, in the 20s somewhere. But it's I think there's only one that I can think of where 3 have been drafted in the top 9. Now I got to go, redo the exercise to make sure I'm totally correct on that, because there have been years when receivers have gone high. I know the year we took Tommy Harris, so that's 2004. I think 3 went in the top 10. Ooh. It was, and that's one of the reasons why we got the first defensive lineman at 13 or 14, whatever the hell that pick was.
Yeah, I think it was 13. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Greg Maliska asks, please ask Greg Gabriel if you had a choice between Caleb Williams and Drake May, who would you pick? If it came down to those 2 quarterbacks, your general manager says, okay, what do you think? Caleb or Drake, who are you taking? What would you say?
I trade.
You trade?
Yeah, I'm trading out. I because there's other guys I like too, and it's Drake May has the mental makeup, the character that you just love. Nobody has any issues with him. I don't think he has the physical talent that Caleb has. But he's not a selfish person. He is a real good team guy. He's got that mental makeup that you want. But would I want to take him at 1? I don't think so. I'd rather trade out, because like the guy you're going to hear going up, as far he already is with a lot of pro teams with the draft media, and I think Jeremiah Brugler's already said he's a top 10 guy. But JJ McCarthy, local kid, Michigan.
Yeah, I am shocked that he is moving up the boards.
Well, it's not that he's moving up; he always was there. It's everybody is catching up to what the teams had. He did not play in what you call an explosive offense. And Pep said it real good. You had an offensive line coach as the offensive coordinator who called plays like an offensive lineman. So they were a run-heavy team, run-first team. So you didn't have that explosive, wide-open offense that some other schools use, which is fine. They won him a national championship. But he only can do what he's being told to do. So you don't see a lot of the talent and the arm talent and throws he can make because of the way that offense is designed. What I've been told, and I don't know the kid from Adam, is that he is so smart and really knows the position so well that when he gets in front of the coaches and they get him on the board, he's going to blow everybody away. And then you're going to see the physical talent and you're going to say, holy shit, what do we got here?
Yeah.
And, so it wouldn't shock me that he's let's assume that Caleb and Drake are the first 2 quarterbacks taken, that he ends up being the third over Daniels.
Wow.
It depends how,
Sure.
how, and they're going to rank, teams are going to look at they're going to rank the players differently. Everybody's board is different. Just because, you know, Daniel Jeremiah has the guy rated as 22nd, and maybe Mel Kiper has that same guy at 19, and Dane Brugler has him at 23. That doesn't mean that's about where teams have him. One team might have him at 10, another team might have him at 31.
Yep.
You know, every team's board is totally different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Got a couple more questions and then we'll talk Super Bowl. Will's Sports Show. Aldo, ask Greg, does he think Jaden Daniels has a better ceiling than Caleb since he is already more pro star ready? Plus, the SEC competition mentally gets you ready for the next level.
You know, he's a really interesting guy. He's got arm strength is there. It's obvious. And his deep accuracy is there. He can make all the throws. He can make plays with his feet. Not the biggest guy. He's tall, but he's, you know, got a wiry build, slender build. You know, some people are going to have him number 3. Some people might have him number 2. Like I say, it's going to be different. You know, I'd like to, at the end of the day, if you could poll, excuse me, poll every team and see how they ranked, say, the top 4 quarterbacks, if they tell you the truth, you know, find out exactly how. It'd be a really interesting exercise, but you're never going to really find that out.
Never. Absolutely not.
No, somebody just had a comment there, and I didn't get to read it about Daniels.
Yeah. Let's see. That was Zach. Daniels just you just don't want to run, and you have to keep his pocket clean. You don't want Jaden Daniels running, and you want to keep his pocket
He
clean.
runs really well. He's fast as hell, but he's not the biggest guy anymore.
No, he's not. He's very thin. Very thin. And McCarthy is very thin too.
He's put together, I think, pretty decent. I mean,
he's 6'3", 207 pounds. You know, he could add some muscle.
He'll play it. You know, he gets in a pro weight room. He's going to be 220. Caleb is a big guy. I don't know how tall he is.
Yeah.
We'll find that out in 2 weeks.
But he's built.
But yeah, he's put together. That's a thick dude. You know,
Yes,
he's going to be 220, I would assume.
And incredible arm talent. He's a very intriguing guy. There's no doubt about it. All right, I want to talk about another intriguing guy, Patrick Mahomes. My take on this Super Bowl is, you know, Patrick Mahomes is definitely the number 1 quarterback and probably will go down in history as one of the top quarterbacks, definitely top 5. Who knows, maybe top 3 or top 1. But that Kansas City Chiefs did not win the Super Bowl solely because of Patrick Mahomes. That defense was incredible. Would love your opinion on that.
No, I agree. And as Jerry said, the special teams on both teams.
Yes, very true.
Special teams play was excellent, but at the same time, special teams cost San Francisco. I mean, they had some great play, but they had a couple bad ones.
Yeah, the blocked field goal attempt, the ball hitting,
the missed extra point.
Yep,
that was huge.
Yes,
and then the punt. And what, you know, when I first saw the play, it looked like, you know, I'm swearing at the returner, like, why are you touching the ball? I didn't realize, and he did, that it hit the guy's foot.
Exactly.
But he should have just pounced on the ball instead of trying to pick it up, because you know what? 9 times out of 10, you're going to fumble that trying to pick it up like he did. But that cost them the game. That play alone cost them the game.
Absolutely did. Absolutely did. So let's talk now about Patrick Mahomes' play. I guess what I'm interested in hearing from you is, because I feel this way. Again, Mahomes is great. I thought he was the best quarterback coming out of that draft. But I do believe that if you place like Josh Allen into that game, Josh Allen would have won the Super Bowl for Kansas City, just like Patrick Mahomes did. And I'm not taking anything away from Mahomes. I just feel it was such a strong team win.
I'm going to phrase that a little differently. And I firmly believe this. I'm not taking anything away from Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes isn't with Kansas City and Andy Reid isn't his coach, Patrick Mahomes is not Patrick Mahomes. Not the Patrick Mahomes we see right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be good? Yeah, he's going to be good because the talent's there. But the marriage of those two makes the difference. And
like Joe Montana and Bill Walsh.
Yes. Mahomes said something yesterday or Sunday that holds true, and it kind of jumped out at me. Sandy lets me be me. He doesn't make me do what I can't do, but and that's what too many coaches do, is trying to make you be who you aren't, play to your strengths. And part of Patrick's strengths is that he's a street ball player.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing football in the backyard with a group of guys, and he improvises. But Andy puts that in his offense. In his offense, all the scramble plays, the alerts are all based on the fact that Mahomes is Mahomes. But it's the combination of the two that make him so great. Now, so when Andy finally retires, we know he's working at least one more year. Is Mahomes going to be Mahomes? Because the captain of the ship isn't going to be there anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. And, the heir apparent perhaps is Matt Nagy. Can Matt Nagy?
Matt Nagy ain't going to be the heir apparent.
You don't think so, huh?
No, not at all. And I tell you what's telling is, now it hadn't happened, but there's rumor to it that the other coach may be coming back.
Eric Bieniemy?
Yes, Bieniemy may be coming back.
Wow.
Who knows what the role is, but Mahomes even said during the year they missed having Bieniemy because Bieniemy held them accountable in practices more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And demanded perfection.
Sure did.
Bieniemy is an old school coach.
Yeah.
For a younger guy, he's a little different for a younger guy. In that he is that old school mentality, but he coaches hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, LaShawn McCoy has complained about Bieniemy, and a lot of people are saying the reason you don't like Bieniemy is because he yelled at you in practice. He called you a couple of names, and now you're upset with him. So this whole thing regarding the overtime rules, King Book World, how the hell as a coach, you don't know the rules for overtime, even though they said it? Now, Shanahan did know the rules for overtime. It's just that it wasn't properly communicated to his players, or maybe not even communicated at all to the players. Do you think that had a big deal to do in the result of the game?
It's almost like can you accept the answer Shanahan had? And I read it this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what the rules are. Yeah, I wanted the ball first because I figured we're going to score, they're going to score, and then we're going to go down and score and win. Okay, so did he say that to cover his ass? I don't know, because he kicked a field goal and they scored a touchdown, so they win. Now, If they kick a field goal, then his thinking is correct, but they looked like they were going to score a touchdown on that opening drive overtime, and then the Kansas City defense tightened up in those last few downs. But I don't know if I can answer it and be fair. There's a couple things that I think the media making something bigger than it really is. One is that.
Let me jump in, Greg, because here's my thought that I think this is the big thing. So
Okay.
on the sideline, you got one sideline that knows the overtime rules. It's not an issue. They're not thinking about it. They're just thinking about execution. On the other sideline, you got guys who are whispering, wait, they changed the rule? What? Yeah. And that's taking their focus away from being 100% in the moment of playing football. I think good coaching has you prepared for any situation, and the 49ers were clearly not 100% prepared for the overtime because they didn't know the rules, and there's questions going on. Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Well,
what do you think?
here's where I can argue that, and I'm just arguing
Please.
for the sake of arguing.
Okay.
You still got to frickin' score. Okay, so it doesn't matter when you got the ball, you got to score.
That's right.
Okay, so and that's what the players have to be preoccupied with.
Yes, I get
Okay,
you.
and the rules are different than they are in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So is it easy to, I'll be honest, I forgot that there was a change. And I didn't remember until it was mentioned
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So was it wrong on Shanahan not to have his players know that? Yes. Was that a difference maker in the game? I don't think so.
Probably not. Okay.
So that's where I was going to go make the point. I think there's two things where media made a bigger thing out of it than it really was. That's one of them. And the other thing was the Kelsey bump of Andy on the sideline.
Your thoughts on that?
It was a big to-do about absolutely nothing. In fact, there was another video that came out yesterday where Andy pushed Kelsey.
That's right. Yes, I saw it.
And I had tweeted out, I said, football is an emotional game played by emotional people. You get charged up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a freaking Super Bowl. You're more charged up for that because it means everything.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get excited. I must have saw a bunch of different posts right after. One was Andrew Marchand, who's the big media writer he's with The Athletic now, but he was with the New York Post forever. And some other people. Well, why didn't Nance and Romo make a bigger deal out of this? It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
They wanted it a big deal. So what if he bumped into him?
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody sent me, some woman sent me a text, and don't mean this because she's a woman. It's just she happened to be a woman. When I wrote that, she goes, I thought it was disrespectful. I go, wrong. I sent back wrong answer. She goes, there is no, so she sends back. Now, I don't know who this person was. I don't know. She goes, there is no wrong answer. That's my opinion. I go, well, she goes, so you can accept it or not. I go, I don't. And why are you making a big deal out of it? It shouldn't be. It didn't phase Andy in the slightest.
Not in the slightest, yeah.
You know, and so if you had seen Andy like turn and have some sort of negative reaction to it, okay, now it's a different thing. He was like, yeah, you bumped into me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like concentrating on what the next call is going to be.
Right. Right.
And Kelsey's like, man, I should have been in that play because, you know, maybe he doesn't fumble because I make the block that should have been made or whatever. So
that's exactly what he's saying. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
And I'm never going to criticize a player for his competitive nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as I said, I thought when I saw the big to-do, that's why I put out a tweet about it. I said, this is ridiculous. This is a nothing that they're trying to make a big deal out of.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I know that, you know, I said that the Chiefs won because it was a total team play, and I'm not at all denigrating the play of Patrick Mahomes. In fact, what I wanted to get your thoughts on, his accomplishment with the receivers that he had. I mean, his number one receiver was a rookie, right? Rashee Rice is a rookie or a second-year man?
Yes, he's a rookie.
Okay, and they had to make inactive Tony because of the drops that he had and so forth.
He's done. He's done in Kansas City.
Yeah, there's no way they're going to let him back in. So,
but part of it was because of some of his he had a blow up when he wasn't active for another game. One of the earlier playoff games. And so
didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he's just done.
Yeah.
And Andy has done that before, and they brought it up that it happened with David Terrell.
Mm-hmm.
He just sent him home, but you can't do that anymore.
Too bad.
David Terrell, Terrell Owens. But you can't send him home anymore. You just paid him for the rest of the year and said, you're done. Don't show up.
Yeah.
But Andy's tough. But, in a way, he's like Bill in that he knows what everybody's button is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to treat you differently than he's going to treat me.
That's why I think good coaches, good leaders do. You know which buttons to press for which people. You got to know them well, and communicate with them in a way that is effective. That is the key right there.
Now, my one season, I saw him blow up once, and we used to have like a meeting with the coaching staff, the scouting staff, and it was before they'd go into some of the player meetings, it was right after the player meetings. So it'd be late at night. And there was something going on between some people with the personnel staff, and this was my only year there, and I was involved in it, and some of the coaches, and he just didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And he just ripped everybody a new a-hole, threw something down, and walked out, and that was the meeting.
Wow.
And he never swore, but he gets his point across real easy. And that was the only reason I went to Philly as a consultant that year is because I wanted to work with him. I'd worked with some great coaches, and he was like one of the another one that I never had an opportunity to work with. And I wanted to, just learn from him, because that's how you get better, is you learn from the best.
Yeah. And
it turned out being an awful year. We were in camp less than 2 weeks, and his son died, who was an assistant coach. And
tragically died.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And it just changed everything. How he even coped to get through the season is beyond me. And I remember, we're on the road, so you don't get to talk to him much. And then when we came in for December meetings, everybody knew the end was coming, and you'd hardly even saw the coaches. But so I never really got a chance to talk to him like I wanted to. Then, right after he gets let go, almost within days, he gets hired by Kansas City. So we're at the combine, and I'm in the exercise room at the hotel we're at, and they just happen to be Kansas City's at the same hotel, and Andy's walking by, and he stops and he looks in and he sees me and he waits. So I go, wait a minute. So I get out, and that's what I had probably the longest conversation I ever had with him. But just a really, really good person.
Yeah, seems by all accounts, and he's getting all the praise now that he richly deserves. Got to ask you about this. Somebody put up Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl because of Taylor Swift. Obviously, that was a joke, but I do want to get your comments on her impact on the team, the NFL. Is she good for the NFL? Bad? We heard today it was the highest rated Super Bowl of all time. What your thoughts on Taylor Swift?
Well, it probably would have been the highest rated game, whether she was there or not. But has she brought in the last couple months more fans into watching, or new fans, created new fans? I'm going to say probably yes. That some of her fans who weren't necessarily football fans were like, oh, this is fun watching this stuff. I think, and so, but from a marketing standpoint, the visibility she brings, hey, if you like her, you don't like her. And I'm not a big fan of her music. My wife is, my daughter Kelsey is. But she's an icon.
She is. I mean, it's unbelievable, the global impact. This is not just the United States, the global impact. And it's
what's amazing is her. There's a few people that have done it their way in the music industry and become very successful. And she's one of them. Yeah. You don't put up with the corporate moguls who want you to do this, do that. You just no, this is the way we're doing it. And, you break away, you form your own label or whatever, but you do it your way. And she's one of them. And she's a billionaire because of that.
All right, we've got you got time for a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
All right, let's see. Black Belt just put this one in. It's a trade scenario. Looks complicated, but let's see if we can get through it. Please ask Greg what he thinks of trading the number 1 pick to either Washington for the number 2, 36, 41, and 2025 number 1, or trade with the Pats for their 3, 34, 68, plus the 2025 1 and 2. Is that feasible along with 9 going moving from 9 to 20?
Well, just using the chart, just you're already Washington's. He said 36. I thought they were at 34, but I didn't look at the second round, so he might be right.
Yeah,
but it's a 400-point move. You're already paying a premium over the points, just giving up that high second round pick. Okay, so now you add the second round pick, and that increases the premium by another 400 and almost 500 points. That alone is a huge. It's almost 1,000-point premium just to make the trade.
Wow.
So you add a number 1 next year, that's going to add, because you figure Washington, they aren't going to be a playoff team. Let's say they're a top 10 team and use use 10 as the number. That's another 1,300 points. That's a 2,300-point premium for one spot. I would, if I'm Washington, I would not make that trade.
Yeah,
but if they're really driven, hey, you go for it. I mean, there's no harm in trying.
Yeah,
because they may say yes.
Right. Well, and a lot, maybe not a lot, but maybe some of their decision making might be influenced by the fact that if they draft Caleb, him being from that area, the season ticket sales is just going to go through the roof. There'll be a waiting list for 20 years.
Well, they got no. I don't know what it is now. If their season ticket number has really dwindled in the last few years. They used to be a sellout team all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a big stadium. It's 80,000+.
Yeah. Yeah.
getting old, and they're going to build a new one.
Yeah.
Where remains to be seen.
Not in Chicago, that's for sure.
No, I mean, well, Chicago's going to get done too. I mean, that's all.
Arlington Heights is going to get done. Chicago is not going to get done, in my opinion. But
well, I'm just looking at the cost difference between one and the other.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Yeah.
I think right now it's they're playing politics and they're playing poker.
Yeah, exactly.
And the school districts are going to give in.
Absolutely.
Because, we talked about a long time ago. They want all that tax money for the land.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm the Bears, I'm going to go, well, how much tax money you're going to get what we're giving you? Then the entities that are going to be on that land, after the stadium's done, there's going to be a hotel, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. You're getting tax money from all that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they got a very solid point.
Absolutely.
The school districts are saying, well, it's like the stadium only. No, it's not the stadium only.
Exactly.
You got to look at the big picture.
Exactly. And they will eventually.
Of course, it's all, they got plenty of time because there's a lot of time left on that lease.
Yep.
But
By
I
the way,
want to see a Super Bowl here before I'm dead.
Me too. They better hurry with me.
Even though I won't be able to afford it, it'll be about, a flat rate for a ticket. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Standing room.
How about this? And I might have said it. The base price of a ticket for that first Super Bowl I went to, which was the Bears Patriots game, and then our game the next year was the same price, was $75.
Mm-hmm.
Now you might have to pay $500 or $600 on a scalp price,
Sure.
but the real price of the ticket was $75.
Unbelievable. Hey, you mentioned the draft chart, and I did a little exercise the other day because over at Draft Tech, you are able to put in, the team that you want to figure out how many value points they have. And so using the Rich Hill version of that draft chart, the Bears have far and away the most value points of any team in the NFL, despite the fact that they only have 6 picks so far in the draft, 1,513 points. Commanders, 1,199, 1,200 points, and they have 3 more picks. The Cardinals, 1,134, and they have 13 picks, but yet because the Bears have the 1st overall and the 9th overall, the value points are sky high, maybe higher than any team in recent memory. That's a great thing, isn't it, Greg?
Well, it means that you've got capital to work with. One of those picks is getting traded.
Yep.
Because as we've already seen, Poles wants to get more picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee he wants 2. He doesn't have one now. And the 2, that's a premium round. Mm-hmm. You want to pick in the 2nd round somewhere. So one of those picks, either 1 or 9, is getting traded. So he can get something, especially in the 2nd round. And if you get something next year, great.
Would you rather have the 13 picks like Arizona does, or would you rather be in the situation that the Bears have?
Well, it's where are the picks? I don't know where the picks where Arizona are, but don't forget this year's draft, you had a lot less underclassmen. You only got 54, 55 underclassmen in this draft. As compared, it's almost like a round of players aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, if you do your homework, you're still going to get really good players because people rate the players differently. But still, the overall depth, it takes away from the overall depth. And it takes away from some of the depth you're going to see in the undrafted free agent portion, after the draft. So, if those picks are 6 and 7s, and I don't know where the hell they are, but let's just assume a lot of them are, well, that's not a big deal. If you got 2s and 3s in there, a bunch of 2s and 3s, well, that's a different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eric asks, do we know if any teams actually use the Rich Hill chart PFF Brad indicated that most use some variation of the JJ chart. I don't most teams make adjustments to the chart based on their evaluation of the overall strength of the draft?
I think it, and I've used the Hill chart a little bit. Bigsy says everybody uses the Hill chart more than the Johnson chart. When it gets down to it, it's all just a basis. Right. It's a starting point. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with the number one pick, you throw it out because you're paying a premium. Mm-hmm. It's how much of a premium can you get? Mm-hmm. But when you get into, and even the top 10, you're still paying a little bit of a premium, but it's a starting point. But when you get into the third round and all of day 3, I don't care what chart you do. Most of those trades are pretty damn close to what the chart says.
Yeah, it just sort of happens that way. Absolutely.
Right, but it's where the pick is that you're trading out of or trading for. Mm-hmm. That tells you if you got to pay a little bit of a premium. How far are you moving to? Because the other team, like let's say it's a 15 spot move. Well, you got to give me a lot to move 15 spots because I'm dropping down a level of players to get more picks.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a premium involved.
Indeed. Oscar asks, what does Greg think about Biggs' comments on Monday? I saw that Biggs was trending on my Twitter feed.
He was on the score, and
what did he say? I don't know.
Basically, we know it's foregone conclusion. Fields isn't going to be here. Oh. That's been Biggs' thought process since mid-season. Mm-hmm. Yes. He's not going to deviate from that. I talk to Biggsy a lot. We argue about it or whatever. That's what he thinks. Is he positive of it? No, that's his feeling.
Right.
He doesn't know anything that anybody else doesn't know. And like I said, if you just look at what these insiders have, they don't even have the same information. They're putting out different stuff.
I know you're not a big fan of Danny Parkins over at 670 at the Score. Yesterday, he posted a picture of him wearing a Caleb Williams jersey. And so Eric wants to know, what did you think of that maneuver by Parkins to wear Caleb?
He's a big Caleb fan. That's, more power to him. If that's what he wants to do, that's fine.
Do you I kind of grappled with this myself. I personally like his show. It is the top rated sports radio show in Chicago. And he's controversial. He says some silly things, but it makes for good radio. But I do think that was a bit disrespectful for the current Chicago Bears quarterback to do something like that, especially if you're on TV and radio like he is. Do you feel that way at all? He's entitled to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Well, he's entitled to do whatever he wants. But I saw a thing on X a little earlier today, probably shortly before, and it was somebody and it wasn't a big name, but saying the disrespect by local media, meaning both print media and talk radio, the disrespect they have shown JF is like nothing we've never seen before, because they were all on the bandwagon with him for the longest time. And just, and then this guy went on to say that it shows a lot. You don't hear a word from Fields, and it shows a lot about his character that he just doesn't say a freaking word.
Yep.
And he's tuned it out. When all this shit started towards the end of the season, he's totally tuned it out. And it does. It says something about him. And I think, just at the Super Bowl last week, everybody, they were asking anybody they could ask. The people from, Chicago and or we want to call it CHGO or whatever, and
Mhm.
trying to get an opinion, and other people trying to get opinion. They had DJ Moore on. DJ Moore once again jumping on the table for Fields, and it's just an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, sure is.
And there's going to be, I know, there's going to be people coming after me on X if they end up taking them. I could care less.
Mm-hmm.
The main reason being is Twitter is fantasy land.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who are these people? I don't know who any of them are.
Yeah, right.
They're a name, and most of them, 99% don't use their name.
Yeah, exactly.
They got a screen name. You use your name. I use my name.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am. Take your shot.
Yep.
But most are Justin Fields fan, Bears fan, whatever their screen name is. They're just nameless entities in space.
Indeed.
So what their opinion is, I could care less. And if I want to say to them, I will.
I love it. All right, the last one, and it's an idea.
Oh yeah, sure. Here we go.
This is it. This
means we got about 5 more.
William Vaughn says, I would love for Greg to do a live podcast during Bears games. He would pay. So the question is for you and for everyone in the chat. Would you pay for Greg to do the analysis of a Bears game here on the Barroom Network while the game is on, and we'd find the appropriate play-by-play man for him? What do you think, Greg?
Well, you could use the whoever doing the play-by-play, but I don't know if I could do that, only because I get so entrenched in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm watching a team I don't care about, it's a different story. But like when I watch the Bears games, Bills games, I'm like focused on the game and whether I could come up with enough thoughts to communicate. Because, like the Travis Kelce thing, yeah, it's an emotional game. I can get a little emotional sometimes. I know you can. Sorry. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, that's great. Swifty has volunteered to do the play-by-play.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. Because I don't know if it would come across good.
Yeah. I think we could make it work. The key is you can't really do play-by-play. The NFL will shut you down immediately. So you would have to be talking like the Manning cast is. They refer to some of the football and then they talk over it, do interviews and blah, blah, blah. We would have to do the same thing.
How am I watching the game
mm-hmm.
and flapping my jaws, looking at the screen here at the same time?
We'll do a rehearsal. We'll pick out an already existing game and do a rehearsal. And Fathead says it would be rated X. Indeed, it would.
Well, yeah, it would. It would be rated X because, like I said, but I'm honest. I when I'm watching the game, I mean, I'm always honest with myself.
Yeah. You tweet, you post during games a lot of times.
Yeah, if I see what I think is a bad call or a good call or whatever, I say it.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be dishonest about it. I try not to be ever. I just, I am who I am. This is what it is, and you don't agree, that's fine.
Were you happy with Nance and Romo's call of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think Romo's getting a lot of shit that he doesn't really deserve.
Okay.
When he first started, his first year and then his second year,
he was awesome.
He was head and shoulders above everybody. But part of it was he was preparing like he had a game on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember specifically because I'd go like, wow. He'd see the team come up in a certain formation. He'd tell you exactly what they were going to do
Mm-hmm.
based on that formation and based on the film study he did. And so you knew the play before the play even started. Oh, so here's what they're going to do. Boom. And he was spot on. But like anybody else that has success, they forgot how they got there. And then you stop doing that prep like that. And that's one of the reasons Greg Olson is really good, because Greg Olson really prepares.
He really does. Yep. I'm with you on that. And I think the same can be said about Chris Collinsworth. I'm not sure he prepares as much as he used to. He's just relying on personality nowadays.
Yeah, no, a lot of them do. And the guys that are really good, they, they're spending a few days watching tape.
Yep.
And they're
exactly.
going and they're looking for tendencies. And the guy might be offensive oriented, defensive oriented, and that's going to come out
right
during the course of a broadcast.
Yep.
I thought Romo was really great early on, and he's not close to that right now.
Totally agree. I mean, there's nothing more offensive to me when the national broadcast comes to town and the announcers don't know players, how to pronounce players' names, don't know some of the stories we as fans know about certain players and so forth. It's clear that they have not prepared well. And they have a team of producers giving them stuff, giving them tape, giving them newspaper articles, giving them stuff.
One of the worst is who doesn't prepare but thinks he knows everything is Mark Slur.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's awful. And whenever he's doing a Bears game, I just like, oh God, I wish I could turn on the radio, but the radio's like, there's a delay when you turn on the radio.
Yeah, 7 seconds, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
you haven't hesitated to let him know either. Via Twitter and social media, you've let him have it a few times.
I'm not a slur. I think he's one of the worst. And there's some good ones, but Greg Olson, I'm proud of Greg because number one, I mean, he was one of our picks and a great guy.
Yeah,
and we still communicate, and he's just done an outstanding job. Brady is admitted he's taken over that number one job, and he's saying he's working really hard at it. So let's say CB, even though Olson's out of contract.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other, or not out of contract, he's still in contract, but under contract to Fox. Does one of the other networks try to steal him away to make him the number one guy?
I would think so.
Fox can block it, but would they? Because he's under contract, I don't know, because he's that good, and he works really well with Burkhardt, and so now he's going to have a totally different play-by-play guy he's going to have to work with.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that more on our next show or one of our future shows. We got a lot of stuff, a lot of topics to talk about. It almost seems like, particularly with the way the Bears played this past season, that we're going to have much more to talk about during these first 3 months of the off season than we would have had the last 3 months of the regular season. Great guest today. Many thanks to Jerry Angelo for joining Greg here on Gabriel Talks Football. That was a great interview, Greg. Are you happy with the way it turned out?
Yeah, no, because I know if you ask Jerry the right stuff, he'll pontificate a little bit. And because that's what he does. But you got to, I know him as well as anybody, so I know how to get him to, to say what I want him to say, or, and ask the right question, so to speak, so, but I was not, and I tweeted it out. There was no way that I was going to ask him, well, what would you do in the thing? Because
that was good.
Right away, it's going to be out there, and that's not fair to have a previous and successful Bears GM second guess the current guy. It's just not fair at all.
Absolutely,
and I would never do that. I wouldn't want to put Jerry in that situation, nor would I want to do that to Ryan Poles.
Yep. D. Stan says, "Oh no, it's over already." Yeah, we got 99 minutes for you to go back and listen to. We are available on demand on all your major platforms. Greg Gabriel, you're the absolute best. I will see you next week, either Monday or Tuesday. Okay, brother?
It'll be Monday because Tuesdays, my every other Tuesday's that screwy day.
Oh yeah.
Where I don't know what time. But I'm like I said, I put out a note to Dane
Brugler,
to see if he can come on, and if he can, we'll have Dane on. I'll know that as soon as I hear back from him, and then we'll go. If not, we can start on free agency and the combine.
That's important topics. All righty, brother. Take care. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later.
All righty.